So my name is DEVDUTT PPATTANAIK and I write on mythology. And I always begin my sessions by explaining the meaning of the word mythology because it's not really taught in schools and colleges, and the meaning has gone through many changes over time. So the word mythology is less than 200 years old, and it has two parts: mythos and logos. Logos means analytical thinking, so that we are familiar with. So you are familiar with biology, zoology, psychology, anthropology, sociology. The logos part is analytical thinking. Mythos is a Greek word which means stories that explain. Right? So it's a very powerful Greek word which says stories that explain. Now, explain what is the question, because it is not any kind of story. All stories are not mythological or myth stories. These are stories that make sense of life. So, for example, you can go to the best scientist in the world and ask him, what happens after death? And he will have no answer. Nobody has an answer. Nobody knows. We just don't know what happens after death. If I don't know what happens after death, then how should I live my life? Now, these questions cannot be answered by mathematics, cannot be answered by engineers, cannot be answered by scientists, by philosophers. Nobody can answer these questions. We rely on stories. So one group of people will say, you live only once. Make the most out of it. Another group of people will say, if you live the right way, you will be judged after death. And if you have lived a good life, you have followed the rules, you will go to heaven or you'll go to hell. Another group will say, well, you don't live just one life, you live many lives. This is one of many lives. Who is telling the truth? Which truth is the truth? The thing is, nobody knows. You can keep arguing forever and ever, and people have been arguing forever and ever and ever. But you will never ever get an answer. What you will have is what people believe in. I believe in this story, and therefore it is true for me. That's mythos. That's the world of mythos. So when you see the Egyptian pyramids, look at the Egyptian pyramids out there, built 4,500 years ago. Why was it built? Because somebody believed in a particular kind of life after death for the leader of a community. And look at the amount of resources they spent to build that pyramid. It makes no logical sense, but it is based on belief related to death. Every year, millions and millions of Muslims go to the Hajj. They travel to Mecca and do the pilgrimage around the Kaaba. Many don't. Nobody, those who are not Muslims won't do that. You ask the person who believes it, he says, it's an important thing for me to do in my life. My life gets direction. That's the power of a story. Millions of people. Some will build pyramids, some will go on pilgrimages. If you go to the Kumbh Mela every 12 years, millions of Indians, many Hindus, especially in North India, will gather around the river Ganga to do rituals. Why do they do that? Because they believe in something. That is the power of mythos. It organizes society because you start looking at life in a particular way. Many people ask the question, is myth fact or fiction? Now this question is a 19th century question. In the 19th century, people were exposed to scientific ideas for the first time. And the idea came that there is a binary. There is something which is false and there's something which is true. If it is rational, if it is logical, it is true. Now this view of the world has been challenged in the 20th and 21st century. Because in the 19th century, the world was controlled by an empire, the British Empire, the European imperial structures. Today, we live in a democracy. And we will ask questions like, whose truth is the truth? Do men decide what is true? Do women decide what is true? Do the rich decide what is true? Do the poor decide what is true? Who decides what is true? Now you'll see that measurements decide the truth, because in science we have something wonderful called measurement. So measurement is good. I can measure your height, I can measure your weight, I can measure your wealth, I can measure the size of this room, I can measure the decibel of sound. So measurement is a powerful technique to find out what is a fact. But can you measure jealousy? Anyone in this room can measure jealousy? Can you see jealousy? Can you feel jealousy? But can you measure it? If you can't measure it, is there an app which says how much jealousy you have today? And how much jealousy your friend has today? And when you go to a party with friends and everybody is dressed beautifully, who is jealous of whom? Who looks prettier? Can you find out? Can Elon Musk create an app that can measure jealousy? So you suddenly realize you can't measure everything in this world. And we start believing that in management, and some of you all may be management students, you can only manage things that can be measured. So I measure things like IQ, EQ. They have all these words, quotients. You have EQ, you have IQ, you have targets, you have productivity quotients, you have efficiencies, effectiveness, attendance calls. Through mathematics, we try to create an objective reality and say that is true. And yet, no one can measure jealousy. No one can measure pride. No one can measure greed. No one can measure hatred. All these important things, these emotions, are not measurable. They're outside the purview of science. So a student of science, of technology, of engineering, of mathematics, has no clue what to do with jealousy, anger, hatred, pride, and yet our society is shaped by these emotions. Where do we locate these emotions? Are they fact or are they fiction? How do I measure them? So this is the definition I give people. Fact is everybody's truth based on measurement. Fiction is nobody's truth based on imagination. Myth is somebody's truth. Somebody's truth. It's not everybody's truth, it is somebody's truth. All of us have some truth in our head. We all have an opinion about ourselves, which we believe is true. You'll say, I am a nice person. Your friends will totally disagree. Whose truth is the truth? Is there an objective way to know you're a nice person? There isn't. Your mother may think you're the most wonderful person on earth. Your father may think you're a scoundrel. Whose truth is the truth? Father's truth or mother's truth? Each one has an opinion. So the world of mythology takes us into the world of cultural realities. How do different people imagine the world? How do they imagine life? Some people believe that there is judgment day after you die. Judgment is important. And therefore, you have to live life the right way. And how do you know what is the right way? You will go to some authority and say, tell me the right way to live my life. So in a country like India, we are told the Constitution tells us this is the right way to live. But there are others who say there is no judgment day. There is no concept of judgment day, for example, in Chinese mythology, or in Japanese mythology, or in Korean mythology, or in Buddhist mythology, or in Jain mythology, or in Hindu mythology. The concept of judgment does not exist. The idea of God as judge does not exist. So then, it becomes somebody's truth, not everybody's truth. You will meet someone who says, I'm very rational, I don't believe in God, I'm scientific. And ask them, do you believe in justice? It's my standard question. Do you believe in justice? Do you believe in equality? Are they real or are they imaginary concepts? Justice is not measurable. You can't see it. It's not there. You believe it should be there. You go to the court hoping for justice, just as someone goes to the temple hoping for divine grace. There is no guarantee you will get justice. You believe in equality. It doesn't exist. But we want society to be fair and equal. It's an aspiration. It is somebody's truth, not everybody's truth. So subjects like physics, chemistry, biology to some degree can be very objective because they can be measured. Physics, very measurable. Chemistry, very measurable. Beyond a point you can't. There is a point beyond which measurement becomes a problem. But on basic level, physics, chemistry, they are measurable subjects. But the moment you come to psychology, measurement becomes a problem. When you start studying economics, when you start studying sociology, politics, you suddenly realize opinions start coming more and more and more. Very different from physics and chemistry. In physics and chemistry, it's mathematics, 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 measurement, measurement, measurement. Evidence, evidence, evidence. Experiment, experiment, experiment. But when it comes to the human mind, it becomes very difficult to know what is objective. So mythology, the world of mythology that I come from, is the world of different people's truths. And what is the practical application of it? What is the practical application of it? I have noticed that when somebody comes up with an idea, you will notice, observe in your friend circle, we will start arguing with them. We will approach it with the spirit of combat. Right, wrong, right, wrong. We debate. Debating is a method of learning which emerged in ancient Greece. You debate, I argue, I refute you, I challenge you. So even today, a PhD student will defend his thesis. The language is violent. Defense. Prove it. And there's a combat. You have to prove your thesis. This emerges from the Greek world. The Indian model is slightly different. It says, and this is where I come to what people use the word Indian knowledge systems. The Indian knowledge system says everybody has access to some truth. Listen to it. Don't argue with it. So I don't argue, I listen. And I find points of agreement, points of disagreement, and I engage in conversation. And by doing that, I realize, I ask myself, why is the person in front of me approaching a subject differently from me? So it is not argument. The Sanskrit word for this is vivad. It is samvad. Samvad is dialogue. Listen to me. In friends, you will see people arguing and combative all the time. Combative, not curious. I'm not curious to know your point of view. I don't have to agree or disagree. I have to just be curious. When people keep arguing, it creates a negative energy and you feel disheartened and broken. Or strong if you're very good at argument, but not everybody is good at argument. But when you are heard, you feel empowered. You feel people are listening to you. This model is a very different way of learning. You are not agreeing or disagreeing. You are just saying, I have heard something new. Why is this new idea different from my idea? And you try to curiously explore the difference. So when someone tells me, DEVDUTT, this is the story from the Bible, and this is how death is described in the Christian world. And then I go to Japan and someone tells me, DEVDUTT, this is how death is described in Zen Buddhism. I don't say who is right and who is wrong. I say, let me be curious about these two ways of thinking. How are they different from each other? And how are they different from belief systems I have encountered in India? And by doing this approach of curiosity, not combat, I have a better cultural understanding rather than a combat. So when we talk about Indian knowledge systems, the unique thing is there is nothing wrong. There is only different ideas. The Jains called it anekantvad, multiple ways of seeing the world. Different ways of seeing the world. There is a scientific way, there is an emotional way, there is a religious way. There are different ways in which we see the world. That is a very different approach to life. So let's go a little bit more deeper into this Indian knowledge system. I'm not going to teach you because there are many books on it, but I'll give you a framework. And by that framework, we will go slowly and try to understand how was knowledge approached in India. So I'm going to begin with something very simple. I want you to think of a tree. There are so many trees in this campus. So much. Ask yourself, what is the foundational difference between a living organism and a non-living object? What is the foundational difference between a living organism and a non-living object? Now, if this was a classroom, I would have asked you all questions and asked you all to think about it. But basically, what is the difference between what you study in physics and chemistry and what you study in biology? What makes something biological? Now, this would be asked if we were living in ancient times. The question would be, what is the difference between a jiva and sajiva? A jiva is no jiva, no life. And sajiva has life. What is the difference? Look at a tree and answer the question. There's only one word. Okay, let's try it. Come on. I know it's a post-lunch session and everybody's busy with their cell phones. Yes? It's the soul. Now, can you explain this to a little baby? I want an answer which a little child will understand. Because it's a simple answer. Do they teach you soul in biology class? Does your microbes, when you're studying microbes, amoebas, tapeworms, earthworms, did they talk of soul? What did they talk about? Come on. Anatomy, movement, clouds move. Rivers move. Continents move. See, such a simple question. We all are educated graduates who know the difference between physics, chemistry, biology, life. What is life? Something simple. Bachcha has to understand. Little baby. It has to be very simple. If it is not simple, it is not knowledge. Then it is show off. Knowledge is always very simple. We work very hard to make it simple. So I'll give you the answer. Yeah, please. Breathe, but there are organisms, unicellular organisms. Breathing requires a respiratory apparatus. Breathing is you're in the right place. Prana, prani, good. But something more basic than that, and something you will all understand in a post-lunch session. Hunger. Hunger. An object is never hungry. An organism is hungry. Hunger. So why does a plant have leaves? Because it is hungry for sunlight. Why does a plant have roots? It is hungry for water and resources. Why does the animal move? It is hunting for food or grazing grass. So when you see nature, the rishis, those old sages are looking at nature, they're saying, is this alive or is this alive? And they'll say, oh, that which is alive always chases food. Hunger is the indicator of life. The scientific word is not hunger, because scholars want to look intelligent. You know what is the word they will use? They'll use the word metabolism. Now that sounds dramatic, like a scholar. But I will say food. Hunger. This you can teach anybody. Everybody understands this. From the farmer to the shepherd to the IIT professor, don't give them food, they'll all fall in line. Why do you go to work? To earn a salary so that you can buy food. Without food, nothing moves. So suddenly, hunger becomes so powerful. Now, I'm going to do something, and I want you to listen carefully. I am hungry, therefore I want food. What is measurable? Hunger or food? Food is measurable. I measure food. Science focuses on food because it is measurable. Literature focuses on hunger. It is not measurable. That's the difference. So when somebody says, I study STEM, STEM, science, technology, they are in the world of food. They are not in the world of hunger. So again, I will use Sanskrit word to sound very intelligent. Saguna it has attributes which are measurable. Saguna, sakara. Nirguna, nirakara, has no form, but it is there. There is hunger. Can I see your... So that is, hunger is one thing, but now look at the plant again. So I told you about hunger and food, right? Plants have thorns. Why do plants have thorns? Because it is protecting itself from its enemies. It doesn't want to be consumed. Plants don't want to be eaten. Even if you're a vegetarian, no plant will come and say, please come and eat me. No plant wants to be eaten. They're terrified of dying. They don't want to die. They don't want their leaves to be pulled. They don't want their roots to be uprooted. So they have thorns. Don't come near me. Let me live my life. All of us have thorns also, right? How we keep people away from us? Stay away from me. We are rude and obnoxious. Stay away from me. We are all insecure. And so we have weapons of defense. What is measurable? The weapon. What is not measurable? Insecurity. Can I measure your insecurity? Can I measure your confidence? I can measure the weapons you are carrying, and it tells me how scared you are. So in ancient times, in order to show a man who is supremely confident, they would do a digambara. A digambara is a word which means someone who wears no clothes. Now this is not literal. This is a metaphor for someone who has nothing to hide, who is not afraid. It's a concept. It's a way of explaining something. So look at this room. This room is full of living organisms. There are people, everyone in this room is hungry. If you had the Ambanis, Adanis, anybody in this room, they are also hungry. That is why they are alive. In corporate world, we don't use the word hunger. What is the word we use? Ambition. We don't like the word hunger. We tell people you should be ambitious. We are all ambitious. And so we seek food. We don't use the word food. We use the word revenue, value, capital, top line, bottom line, GDP. but it is food. Then I'm insecure, I'm frightened, I have thorns, I need defenses, I need to protect myself. What are the things that you do to protect yourself? Physically protect yourself, psychologically protect yourself. How do you protect your self-worth, your dignity? When someone insults you, you feel hurt. When someone praises you, you feel powerful. And you realize you are no different from the plant. You have leaves, you have roots, you have thorns. But then the plant realizes in order to stay alive, one day it is going to die. How does it outsmart death? It has to reproduce. In order to reproduce, it needs to produce seeds. In order to produce seeds, it needs the help of other living organisms. Otherwise, it cannot produce seeds. So now it has to start producing flowers. It has to start producing fruits. The flowers are produced, it contains nectar. Bees and butterflies will come, pollination will take place. The flower will turn into a fruit. The fruit will be consumed by animals and the seed will be dispersed. In other words, in order to survive, it needs to be part of an ecosystem. It needs to engage with birds and butterflies and animals and monkeys and lizards and squirrels, and only then will the plant survive. So now look at yourself and ask, hey, what are my leaves in order to survive? What is it that I'm doing? Now, if I don't want to use the word leaves, I will use a technical word, economics. Because food is about economics. Power is about politics. So economics, power, politics. And then you start looking at the seeds and the reproduction, and you are talking about human relationships. And suddenly human relationship, management, all these words start to become important. So you suddenly find a world of economics, politics, philosophy emerging. This is how knowledge is taught. Do we focus on the measurable or do we focus on the non-measurable? What do we focus on? And this is a thought I want you to think about. So how is it communicated? After all theory, let me tell you stories now. Because all these theories are over and those who want to leave have left. So we will now tell you stories to entertain. And we'll see how stories communicate ideas. How do stories communicate ideas? How many of you all have heard of Bakasura? Bakasura is a demon from the Mahabharata. He is always hungry. He is so hungry that he wants to eat everything. He not only eats what is being served, he also eats the one serving him. Bakasura is the demon of gluttony. He keeps eating and eating and eating and eating. He eats everything and everyone around him. And the villagers are very tired of him. You know, nowadays we live in what is called a consumption economy. We encourage our children to be Bakasurs. Eat more, consume more, consume more, consume more. The value we give our children is to consume and to consume and to consume and to consume. And then we talk of sustainability. What happens when Bakasur keeps eating and eating and eating? One day, he goes to Shiva and he says, I've eaten everything in this world. I've eaten everything. What do I eat now? And Shiva says, eat yourself. And Bakasur is so obedient, he starts eating himself. He eats his fingers and he eats his throat and he eats his trunk and he eats his legs. He eats his toes and nothing is left, only his head is left. And across India, if you go and see the temples, on top of the temple you'll see a very big head looking down at you. That is the head of, they call it Kirti Mukha. They don't want to call its real name. Its real name is Bakasur. And that Bakasur is looking at everybody entering the temple and saying, oh look, another Bakasur has come to ask for more and more and more. He'll keep asking more. Because you see, stay hungry, stay foolish. That's what we are told, right? You should always be ambitious. Ask more out of life. Consume more. Eat more. This obsession with consumption is presented through a character called Bakasur. And in the Mahabharata, there is a hero called Bhima. And Bhima comes to the village and tells Bakasur, I have a lot of food with me. Why don't we share it? And Bakasur said, I can't share it because I'm hungry all the time. Should I not satisfy my hunger? I have to satisfy my hunger. I have no time for anybody else. When you are hungry, remember when you are hungry, you don't think of other people. You're only thinking of yourself. And Bhima says, that doesn't work like that in life. If you do that, he says, no, I'm going to eat you too because I'm so hungry. I'm so hungry. And Bakasur and Bhim have a fight. And Bhim defeats Bakasur and drives him away. And the entire village is very happy. And they say, Bhima, you have saved us from Bakasur. We want to reward you. All the food we cook for Bakasur, we are going to give it to you. Bhim says, good, thank you. I'll go away now. But what will happen after I go away? Another Bakasur is going to come to this village. And it will consume you. What will you do then? And then another Bakasur will come. And then another Bakasur. There are no end of Bakasurs in this world. And then they say, Bhim, why don't you stay with us? Stay in this village. Protect us. Bhim says, why should I protect you? He says, anyway we produce food so that Bakasur doesn't attack our village. We will give it to you to eat. And you exchange, protect us from the future Bakasurs. And so, the first business deal is struck in the world. Bhima gives security services in exchange for which he gets the same food Bakasur was getting. So Bakasur and Bhim are two characters and they are both present within us. The difference is Bakasur only thinks of his own hunger. Bhima thinks of other people's hunger. He gives you something to get something. He gives in order to get. There is an exchange. It's not raiding, it is trading. I give in order to get. While Bakasur is only saying, I'm going to eat all the time. Now think of all your relationships. Think of your father, your mother, your brother, your sister, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your husband, your wife, your son, your daughter. And suddenly you'll realize, oh my God, everyone has a little bit of Bakasur in them. They only think of their own hunger. They don't think about you at all. I can see some of you laughing. And some of you are actually looking into the mirror. Because you suddenly discovered your true self. You all are all Bakasurs in some form or the other. I am too. But there's also Bhim inside us. Saying, I do look at other people's hunger. Other people's hunger matters. It's not just about my hunger. It's also about your hunger. Can you ever see hunger? Yes, you can, through empathy. When we use words like consciousness, and in Vedanta they'll use words like Atma, Brahma Vidya, it basically means awareness of the invisible hunger. When you see hunger, you see life. If you see hunger in other people, you discover your own humanity. Modern management is not interested in other people's hunger. Modern management is based on Bakasur. I must keep eating. I must keep eating. So you people get angry with the government saying, you're only collecting taxes. What are you giving us in exchange? Why are you behaving like Bakasur? When we talk to our friends, you suddenly use these 1-2 words and relationships will start making sense to you. Bakasur and Bhim. This story is 2000 years old. They are not talking about a fact. They are telling you something about the human condition. This is human beings. Through a fabulous character called Bakasur, they are making you ask questions, the dangers of ambition, gluttony. On social media, you see the gluttony for glamour. This hunger for glamour. You know what's glamour? The desire to make others jealous. That is the meaning of the word glamour. When somebody says, I'm glamorous, it means I have the ability to make you jealous. And there is the gluttony of glamour. Look at Kim Kardashian's show. It says, to have more and more and more and more and more. And we're told, that's amazing. She's $1 billion worth. That's the way to live. That's how values are being sold to us. To consume and to consume and to consume and to consume. Never be content. In fact, if you're content, they will tell you, you are complacent. You're a lazy person. But a content person is not a lazy person. A content person is someone who looks at other people's hunger. That's the definition of contentment. When I serve you food and don't think only about my food. Only a content person looks at other people's hunger. If you are not content, you will never look at other people's hunger. And you'll always stay Bakasur. So I hope at the end of this lecture, if nothing else, you remember Bakasur. Thank you so much. Thank you. I can take a few questions and then I'll have to leave for the airport. Feel free to ask. I think we have 15-20 minutes aram se. We can easily take 5-10 questions. Yes, please. Can someone give a mic so that we can... Maybe those who want to ask questions can come somewhere here and just take the mic from here or something.
Okay. I'm Udayasree. I'm a research scholar. I'm doing my research under your books and I want to ask some ideas about gender equilibrium or gender equality.
So I never talk about equality. I talk about freedom. Equality is a complex idea and people love this idea. But no two plants are alike. Even the two banyan trees are not alike. Two mango trees are not alike. Equality is a human imagination which ends up destroying diversity. So I'm going to give you a controversial idea and think about it. Diversity and equality are opposites of each other. Equality goes towards homogeneity. Over time, it will try to create a homogeneous idea. Diversity will move gradually. It's not a good idea. Every idea has a negative point. Diversity will create hierarchy, feudalism. So equality will create standardization, but it will take away identity. Diversity will create hierarchy. Lots of variations, but suddenly some people will be more powerful, some will be less. And we have to be aware how this functions. So equality sounds good, but in its extreme form will strip you of identity. Diversity sounds good, but in its extreme form will create oppression. And therefore, when you talk about gender, diversity, equality, it has to be a negotiation. Nowadays, people who talk about gender are bakasurs, not bhimas. A bakasur says, look at me, I am right. A bhim will say, I am right, so are you. Let's have a conversation. Let's do a samvad. So you all will be familiar with words like woke and these new postmodern ideas. Most of these ideas, and they usually emerge from European and American universities, are highly bakasur oriented because it is individualistic and isolationist. They are not talking about the bees and the butterflies. Remember how I began with the tree. I used a natural example for you to understand what is ecology. And this is forgotten by most people. From Elon Musk to Judith Butler. Elon Musk is the master of STEM. Judith Butler is the master of gender studies. Neither of them, both of them are bakasurs. Obsessed with their own idea, with no empathy for alternate ideas. Anekantavad, Jain idea, originating in India. Part of Indian knowledge systems. Everybody has a place. You have to work with this complexity. Yeah? Thanks. Questions get answers, no questions, no answers.
Sir, good noon, sir. I'm very happy to meet you in this occasion, actually. I'm very excited because I'm doing research on Mahabharata.
Okay.
I'm just giving my idea
Sure.
and want your insights in this.
Sure.
Actually, I have taken 3 characters, Draupadi, Kunti and Satyavati.
Yes.
And I want them to correlate in French feministic terms, femme fatale, femme savante and femme doumante.
I can't hear you. The last part.
Three feministic characters, yeah, that is Satyavati, Kunti and Draupadi.
Yes.
And I want them to correlate and justify the French feministic terms that femme fatale, femme savante and femme doumante.
I am not familiar with these words.
French feministic terms.
Too heavy stuff for me.
Okay, sir. So I'm doing research on that, actually.
Okay.
I have come across many retellings according as yours also. There is any insights while
So I'll
doing
give you
this?
one insight that may be of value to you.
Okay.
If you want an elaboration of this insight, it is part of my book Sati Savitri.
Sati Savitri.
Yeah, it's just released book. It's by Penguin.
Okay.
So when you read the Mahabharata, if you go through generations of women, you will sit. When you will see a very interesting pattern that emerges. The first woman who appears in the story is a lady called Ganga. And Ganga, as this very...
Can I place
you're
my
going
phone here, sir?
I have okay, take it.
Thank you, sir.
They're recording it anyway, don't worry. So, Ganga negotiates her marriage and says, I will marry you provided you give me complete freedom after marriage. I'll do whatever I want after marriage. And she goes about killing her own babies. That's the level of freedom she demands. The second woman is Satyavati. She says, I will marry the king provided my children become the kings of the kingdom. So she's negotiating and a price for marriage. She is asking a bridal. One is asking freedom, the other is asking property for her children. Even at the cost, she doesn't care for fairness and justice. She says, I want this. You want to marry me? This is my terms and conditions. The next generation, you have Amba, Ambika, Ambalika, who are abducted by force and made to marry a king who dies, and then the widows are told you have to go to another man and become pregnant. Which means the third says there is no agency. So first Ganga, then Satyavati, then Amba, Ambika, Ambalika. The generation after that, you have Gandhari, Kunti, Madri, whose husbands are chosen for them. Gandhari discovers her husband is blind. Kunti and Madri discover their husband cannot give them children. They have to go to other men to produce babies. You have Gandhari beating her stomach to produce a child. You see how agency is dropping with each generation of the Mahabharata? And then comes the famous Draupadi, who suddenly discovers the man she marries is an impostor. She doesn't marry Arjun, she marries a man who pretends to be a Brahmin who knows to do archery. Turns out he is Arjun and she has to be shared by his brothers. So suddenly she is shared by 5 brothers. It's not her wish. A decision is taken for her. So now from Ganga to Satyavati to Amba Ambika to Ambalika to Kunti to Draupadi, the story changes. In the Mahabharata, 2000 years ago, can we call this a documentation of patriarchy? Written 2000 years ago. 2000 years ago, somebody wrote it down. And it makes you think that these are not modern issues. These are people are thinking about these ideas. How can you deny a woman her right over her own body? Today, the US Supreme Court denies women rights over their own body. The Mahabharata talks about women called the Apsaras who produce. Why Mahabharata? The Rig Veda has a poem of a woman called Urvashi who tells her husband, I am bored of married life. I am going to my friends. Bye-bye. And the husband says, what about our children? She says, you take care of them. I'm going. Bye-bye. That's a Rig Vedic verse. Which of course, all interpretation will say, actually, it's not really a woman, it is some natural phenomena. Because no man wants to be told that his wife is bored of him. But the Rig Veda has a story of a woman called Urvashi who is bored of her husband. But there's also the story of Lopamudra who wants her husband's attention. So you see, not one point of view, another point of view. Samavad, not Vivad. They're not saying this is right and that is wrong. They're saying Lopamudra loves Agastya and she wants him. Urvashi is bored of Pururava. Both kinds of people exist in this world. Samavad, not Vivad. They're not saying one is right and one is wrong. They're saying there are two different truths. Everybody's truth is different. Try to understand this. Don't try to judge it. Approach it with curiosity, not with combat. This is how you study Indian knowledge systems. Not that Indian knowledge systems are better than the Western system. It is different from them. Being different doesn't mean you are better. It just means you're different. Apples are good, oranges are good. But sometimes your boyfriend turns out to be a pomegranate. What do? You crush it and have a juice with it. But enjoy it. That's what life has given you, a pomegranate. Enjoy it. But wait till it ripens. Thank you. See, interesting question, interesting answers.
Hello, sir. I have a query. You have been trying to explain the difference between rational thinking and a philosophical bent of mind. Likewise, creative thinking and critical thinking have a subtle difference. Can you explain on that?
So these are slightly technical words. I may not be the right person to ask. So I will venture an answer based on the questions that you ask. Most thinking processes don't factor in emotions. Critical thinking does not factor in emotions. So nowadays people are saying along with critical theory or critical thinking, you need critical empathy. For me, that is the biggest missing point in education today. The absence, so when somebody says I'm rational, there's something very arrogant about it. Or I'm an atheist, or I am scientific, or I have critical thinking. There is something smug and arrogant about it. There is no empathy. And the absence of empathy is why no matter what sustainability we talk about, it won't work. Because what the world lacks today is kindness. Instagram, Facebook, Google, Apple, they are not designed to make you a kinder person. They are designed to make you a glamorous person who makes everyone else jealous. And that is not healthy. So when I meet, and I do meet very rich and powerful people, that's my job, I have no respect for them. For me, Bakasur. I see the Bakasur and I call a Bakasur. You are a Bakasur, because that's your aim. You want to make the next $1 billion. You are not interested in the world. Knowledge, wealth is wonderful. Money is fantastic. You can live a wonderful life with money. But you will enjoy money only when you're content. If you're not content, you will never enjoy money. Like knowledge, you can keep studying, you'll never enjoy knowledge unless you're content. And you suddenly open the book with joy. So contentment, santosha, is a very important thing to cultivate. As a young person, you will have very less of it. Its nature tells you not to have it. But as you grow older, that should be an aspiration. Not to be rich, but to be content. Because trust me, you can meet super rich people, but they are all so hungry all the time. Most billionaires I meet, I want to remove my wallet and give them the 10 rupees I have in my pocket. Because they are so hungry all the time. When they walk, you see saliva falling. Bakasurs, it's an epidemic. I hope you don't encounter them. Thank you.
Sir, I have a question.
Sure.
It's regarding, you are a writer, so it's regarding Perumal Murugan's one-part women. There was a court case, like Perumal Murugan fought because of that novel. So my question is, how you take the definition of fiction? Is it only an imaginative work or a reality? For instance, if we take the Mahabharata Ramayana epics, some political reasons they are making it, taking it advantage from it, telling that it's real, it happened there, it happened here, we built something,
Yeah.
those things. But how we should take? There are many Ramayanas, different parts of India tells. Gujarat if you go, South India if you come, we have different kinds of Ramas, different kinds of
Yeah.
Sitas, and we have Shiva culture, Dravidians. So taking all this, how can you homogenize that thing, Mahabharata? Do you consider the epics as an imaginative word or reality happened here?
So tell me, do you believe God created the world?
I know God is there, but I don't know He created or what. Nature created.
So the question is, there are many people in this world who believes God created the world. For them, that is the truth. And they believe God has made women inferior to men. They believe it. For them, that is the truth. They also say that God has made homosexuals inferior and they should be killed. And they believe it. How will you deal with such a person? In life, you will always meet people who disagree with you. They will think differently from you. Maturity lies in how do you deal with them. Right? There are people in this world who believe, genuinely believe, women should not have rights over their reproductive rights over their body. They believe it. Court cases are being fought. I don't believe it. I believe a woman has a right to do whatever she wants with her body. But that's my belief. And I meet someone who doesn't believe in it. How do I work with them? Do I reject them? Do I cancel them? Do I convert them? Because if I want to convert them, then I'll go into a combative mode, which is what is happening around the world. Everybody has become a master salesman. We are selling our ideas. Somebody gets upset over a story. Really, it's childish. I mean, I wish somebody got offended with my book so that I could sell more. These are foolish things. People must be allowed. The maturity is the ability to handle nonsense. We live with people who have nonsensical ideas. You go to social media. It's frightening what people talk about. But I can't keep yelling and shouting. The world should think exactly like me. That's like trying to boil the ocean. You will never be able to boil the ocean. So work with multiple points of view. Approach things with curiosity rather than combat. And you'll suddenly see life gets a little better. Slightly better. It will not be the same. There'll be some people you have to avoid. You can't talk to them. But some people you'll manage. It's like I'm a gay person. And I have had so many friends saying, before I met you, I thought all gay people were weird. And I'm like, okay. He's entitled to his opinion. Right? So, to be comfortable in your own skin, to talk about it very comfortably, requires a lot of courage. And when you talk like that, then slowly people around you, not everybody, will calm down. So somebody wants to believe Ramayana is history. Okay. He cannot understand the grandeur of the Ramayana. The Ramayana is a very complex book. I'll give you an example of Ramayana. Ramayana talks about sal trees. If you're a botany student, anybody a student of botany, study what is sal trees. India, sal trees, it talks about sal trees everywhere. Sal trees are there in Ayodhya, sal trees are there in Mithila, sal trees are there in Kishkinda, sal trees are there in Lanka. Now you'll say, DEVDUTT, what's the big deal about sal tree? If you're a student of botany, and if you're curious, and you do a chat GPT, and you start studying sal trees, you'll realize sal tree grows only in North India, Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Odisha. It doesn't grow in South India. This is the teak belt. And suddenly you realize these stories were written in that part of India at a particular time in history. And the story traveled south slowly as the Vijayanagar Empire came, as the Cholas came, as Kamban wrote the Ramayana. The story migrated and transformed into something totally different. But the Sala tree tells you something interesting about India's geography. Now, I would like to look at Ramayana like that, rather than history and go ahead and focus on Ram and forget Sita, which is what they have done. All images of Ram without Sita traditionally is inauspicious. In Hinduism, to show Ram without Sita is bad luck. It's bad luck. Dampatya. They should always be together, the male and the female. It has to be together. It's very important. And I keep saying, you're talking about Hinduism, and there is no Vama. Vama is the lady. If there's no Vama, you go to any Tirupati Devasthanam, there has to be the goddess. This is, now how do you explain to hooligans? Do what you want.
So,
Life is wonderful.
I would like to know your opinion on this. Do you consider the epics as imaginative works?
On Monday, Wednesdays and Fridays, I think they're imaginative. On Tuesdays, Thursdays and Saturdays, they are real. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Hi, sir. Your presentation is so nice and we really enjoyed. Actually, it's so unique also. Yeah, thank you, sir. Actually, I want your suggestion on this.
Sure.
Actually, we are living in a system where the system says we should not use the plastics. But the system is not doing any action to ban the plastic producing industries, right? So we are living in such a system. So what do you think, who has the power to replace this modern management, Bakasha, into Bima? So I want your suggestion on, is it an individual's hand, or there is a need to redefine the system? Yeah, I want your suggestion on this.
If you go to the villages of Tamil Nadu, you'll see women carrying water. They used to carry metal pots.
Okay.
Then they used to carry earthenware pots. Have you ever carried an earthenware pot or a metal pot? It's very heavy. Then one day someone gave them a plastic pot. They love it. You go to her and tell her, give up the plastic pot. Use organic. She'll beat you with a stick.
Yes, sir.
We are privileged people. We live in privileged ecosystems. These are complex ideas. That plastic bag.
Nowadays, natural products are only, it's high cost. It is in high cost.
We are living, I can speak to you because of unnatural things like microphones. Our phones use lithium batteries, which is based on slavery in Africa. We can't live without our phones. Nature consumes, culture consumes nature. So as long as Bakasur is alive, plastics will be made. Some new chemical will come which will destroy the world. Each one will be doing this. This is how nature works. And one day we will do something silly and something will just implode. Nature will survive. Humans will die. That's the worst that will happen.
So you are saying there's no possibility to replace it with
Well, if you want to be the savior, you know the last time what happened to the savior? He was crucified. Yeah? So we all have a choice to be the savior. But remember, there's a price to be paid. Thank you. Thank you so much.